Hey everybody, if you're interested in making Kydex sheaths and holsters for yourself, here are some of the tools that I use. I'm going to go through them briefly. Here are some examples of the Kydex. This is a taco type holster. This is a sheath for a Leatherman Super Tool 300. It has very nice retention. I did a simple paracord loop to attach it to my belt. I did the same thing for a Craftsman 6-inch crescent wrench. I was working late at night and was carrying the crescent wrench in my pocket, and at some course in the evening I ended up using it. It came out of, and it was out of my pocket and I couldn't find it. So I said, okay, I'm making a sheath. That way when I'm done using it, it snaps into the sheath. It can't fall out of a pocket. In my travels, harder to lose. This is a Becker BK16. And this is simple sheath, and you can lace paracord through it as well. You can also get the clips that attach with screws, and you would use Loctite. I made one for a K-bar marine knife for a friend of mine, and actually put the belt clip on it with the Loctite, and he liked it a lot. I go the paracord route usually. This is a Escobar, which is a collaboration between Essie and K-bar. It's a nice knife. I like it. That can be worn as a neck sheath if you like. I don't recommend paracord for the neck though, because if it gets hung up on something, it's really tough. You want a beaded chain, something that in an emergency you can snap so it doesn't create a choking hazard, I would suppose. But that's how I have that one. Okay. Kydex comes in all kinds of colors. This is a black. This is like a coyote tan or a desert tan. Here's an orange camo, which there's like a blaze orange. You can see I cut pieces out for the size of the project I'm working on. Here's a blue. Now, why in the world would I have orange and blue together? Well, if you know me, you know why. Here is a camouflage, urban blue camouflage, which you can pair it with the orange if you like orange and blue. You can pair all kinds of different combinations together. First thing I want to talk about is toaster oven. My strong advice is don't use a toaster oven in your house. If you use a toaster oven in your house, when you heat thermoplastics like Kydex, the plastic as it's heated will release chemicals. I'm the type of person that if I'm going to use a toaster oven for my food, I don't want thermoplastics heating in it and releasing chemicals into the food or into the implement itself that I use to heat my food. So this is a dedicated secondhand garage sale type toaster oven. I have a small pan that is never taken into the house and used for food. It is only for Kydex heating. I have some stainless steel plates, and I can utilize the stainless steel plates for heating for small projects. I can use the pan for larger projects. You can also very inexpensively get a Harbor Freight heat gun. This is good for detail work. You can use this for the whole process if you like, but it's more convenient to use the toaster oven. One of the processes with using the toaster oven is when you have something heating up. There's a temperature range, I'm going to say around 350, but look it up for yourself, because if you overheat the Kydex, it can blister a little bit or disform, and it's not as presentable. You want to heat a Kydex where it's very flexible and can be molded. One of the tools I use to check temperature to Kydex is a Raytech. I call it a heat gun. It's an infrared thermometer. I call it a heat gun because I can shoot the temperature and see what the temperature of something is. And I can check the Kydex while it's in the oven, either through the glass or directly on the Kydex itself. It's a good idea when you're handling hot Kydex to wear a glove to remove the Kydex. I made two types of presses. The first one involves two Harbor Freight clamps. They're not very expensive. I took some 2x4s and some plywood, and I made two of these. I've got foam rubber glued onto the board, and I use paper towels. And what I do to keep the foam rubber from sticking to the Kydex, I place the Kydex between the paper towels. Then I put the press together with the Kydex, with the object that I'm trying to form it to inside. And let me give you an example. This, for example, without the paracord, I've placed, for example, the black piece of Kydex down first. Then I placed the wrench in place. Then I placed the brown Kydex on top. Then I placed the press, upper part of the press on. Then you take your clamps, you put one on one side, one on the other. You have them opened up and loose. Then you tighten them down. And you let this sit for, well, you want the Kydex to cool down and assume the form of the object that you're wanting the sheath or holster to fit. One important thing that I need to mention is it's a good idea to use painter's tape to wrap and cover two layers on the object. That way the retention won't be too tight, and if it's an object that you don't want scratched up too badly, if sand gets in your holster or sheath or any kind of dust, it gives you a little bit more play. And I'm not overly happy with the retention of this. This was an unusual object for me. It wasn't as easy as making the sheath for the Leatherman. The other item I use is a vacuum table. This is a box made of plywood. I've drilled holes in the top. I've got a piece of PVC pipe wrapped with duct tape. I've got a block with a screw in it running through the other side to hold the PVC in place. The hole was drilled big enough for the PVC pipe to go through with like a spade bit. I take the object, and in this case it was the Leatherman sheath, because this is a pancake type sheath. It's like stacks of pancakes. Laid the Leatherman on the table. The back piece was flat, so I didn't even have to mold it, but then laid the top, the orange camo, on top of the Leatherman, hooked up the vacuum, laid a piece of plastic over the top, just a trash bag. It doesn't matter, as long as it's not something that's too thin that the heat of the Kydex will melt it. But like a piece of bisqueen or a trash bag or something, lay that on top, had the shop vac hooked up to the nozzle here, turned the shop vac on, and the shop vac pulled the plastic down and vacuumed the form of the object. That, in a nutshell, is what I do when I want to make something out of Kydex, to adapt to an item. It's not very hard, not very expensive. If you're handy with tools, good with your hands, it's easy to learn. It's not too hard to master. I would not say that I'm a master at this. I dabble. But there are people out there whose Kydex work is incredible. There are lots of videos on YouTube where you can see other people with better processes than the ones that I have. This was simple for me. It was an easily achievable and obtainable goal. So this is how I roll. This is the route I took. I hope you find this information useful.